Welcome to the Seniors Grief Circle. This is our first episode, and I'm thrilled to have you here. My name is Karen Sibal, and I'm the founder of the Seniors Grief Circle. In this episode, I'm going to be sharing some information about what the Seniors Grief Circle is and my mission to help anyone at midlife who has lost a loved one. This podcast will be featured twice a month, and I'm going to be offering real talk that soothes the soul. I want to have those heart centered conversations to help anyone at midlife who's lost a loved one. Maybe it's your parent, maybe it's your life partner, your child, or anyone else. I want anyone who is grieving to know that you're not alone. I know it can sound cliche, but it's true. Sure, there are many people around the world who are grieving the loss of a loved one. But when it happens to you can feel really alone, like your entire world has just fallen apart, and no one understands the depth of your pain and your loss. And I know it's not always easy to talk about. You might have a gazillion thoughts running through your head 24/7 with nothing making any sense. I know this because I've been there. I've lost 7 family members since 2020. I lost my mother in law. Then I lost my father in law. I lost 3 relatives on my husband's side. Then I lost my dad. And just a few days ago, I lost an uncle. My mother was diagnosed with a terminal illness right after my dad passed away. And then I became estranged from 3 family members. So I've had to deal with many layers of complex grief in a short period of time. At first, I was lost. I was really lost in the depths of how my family had changed on so many levels and so fast. My support system seemed to just crash overnight, especially when my dad died. None of us in my family were thinking straight, and emotions were running high. It made it really difficult to get through the practical matters that required our immediate attention, legal matters, financial matters, and many more things. My relationships with my family of origin, those relationships became severely strained, and then they just fell apart. We had some elements of family dysfunction that sent us on a collision course when my dad died, and then there was no turning back. I'll save these details for an upcoming podcast episode. You won't want to miss it, especially if you've been part of a dysfunctional family your entire life. Then, for me, the icing on the cake in my grief journey has been my own personal health, which got affected on many levels. Swept up in my emotions, I let my health slide until I could no longer ignore the symptoms. I began having heart palpitations. I began having fainting episodes. My hair began falling out massively in clumps. My skin became inflamed, and I gained some weight. I had an underlying autoimmune condition that got reactivated after many years of being in remission. Then my family doctor gave me some blunt talk one day. Either I would develop cancer or I would have a fatal heart attack, just like my dad had. It was a sobering reality of what I was faced with. that led me to a place of doing some deep soul searching and some deep introspection. Some things like therapy, it really helped me. Therapy, in fact, saved my life. And then immersing myself in my faith and understanding scripture. I was never a particularly religious person before, but when family members just started dropping dead all around me, I didn't know where to turn. So I surrendered. I surrendered myself to the universe and to God. And I looked to God to give me protection from the storm. I began spending more time alone, doing a lot of yoga, spending time with my dog, taking daily walks, journaling, and spending time just grounding in nature. I took a couple of trips. I sat by the beach. I meditated by the water. I meditated by the lake close to my house. On my grief journey, I really didn't have a lot of people around me who understood the depths, the depths of my grief, the depths of my pain, the depths of my anger, the depths of my guilt, the depths of my regrets. There were so many layers. And I didn't really have a lot of people that understood what that felt like. Sure, I had some really close friends that were there for me. But then there were people in my circle that I'd known for decades that simply vanished. And they didn't even really care to listen. And I get that on some level. Everyone has their own pile of stuff that they're dealing with, especially since 2020. But grief, it can be a very lonely journey to walk alone. I had never been through anything of this magnitude in my life before. Dealing with one death is hard enough, but 7? There were days I felt like a bulldozer had just flattened me. I didn't know how to scrape myself up. I didn't have a community where I felt safe, where I could share the deepest depths of my pain, to unload what my sadness felt like, and to get some practical common sense advice. I discovered that most people need help in 4 major areas after a loved one passes away: legal matters, financial matters, navigating relationship changes, and self care. These are the areas that I struggled a lot with, especially after my dad died. But sometimes it wasn't like I was really looking for anyone to help me, quote unquote, solve whatever I was dealing with. I just wanted a place where someone would just listen, a place where I could get some practical help if I needed it, but a place where people would understand what grief really is. And not necessarily a therapist, although therapy has its place and it can be a lifesaver. But I was really looking for people with lived experiences, having been through a devastating loss. Real people who understood what grief really is, especially when it hits you at midlife. And you're sandwiched between taking care of your kids and your parents. And when someone in your family dies, that sandwich it literally falls apart. So, in the depths of my pain, and after a lot of soul searching and some introspection, I came up with the idea of the Seniors Grief Circle. It's a tribute to my parents, but especially to my dad. It's a place where anyone grieving at midlife can come for some gentle support and some guidance on all things related to grief. It could be help with many of the practical matters related to grieving and some emotional support too along the way. For things like, what do you do in the first few days after the death of your loved one? How do you organize a funeral arrangements? How do you do that if you have a small family and you don't have much support and you're all grieving? How do you begin to organize a funeral and you don't have a lot of time? How about gathering important documents like the death certificate? Who issues it? What do you do with it? What's it needed for? And then what about locating the will of your family member? What if your family member didn't have a will? And then what's probate? What's an estate trustee? I had a lot of questions. I'm sure other people have those questions too. And then there's financial matters that need your attention, like closing bank accounts, notifying utility companies, government authorities, canceling insurance policies, settling debts, filing that final tax return of your loved one. So these sound like checklist items that should be fairly straightforward to get through. But when you're grieving and you can't think straight, it's not so easy. And then you've got the matter of dealing with your family home if you've had a parent who's passed away. And if you have siblings, maybe you have to make the decision to sell it. If you have a remaining parent, that parent is going to need a lot of care when one of your parents passes away. They're going to need some emotional support. They need to think through the next chapter of their life. Maybe they don't want to live in that home anymore without their life partner that maybe they had for decades. And so we might be looking at moving them into a smaller place or a retirement community. Or maybe they don't want to move at all and they want some home care or some help with managing on their own at home. So there's a lot of decisions that need to be made there. And then there's the aspect of challenging family dynamics. When you have a parent pass away, or your remaining parent passes away, or any other family member, but especially when it comes to a parent passing away. If you have a remaining parent and they require some level of care, and you don't get along with that parent or with your siblings, that can be super challenging. What I've noticed in helping clients is when a parent passes away, either the siblings and the remaining family can really come together, which is a beautiful thing to support each other when you're grieving, or the family can completely fall apart. And that happens more often than you think. And finally, the Seniors Grief Circle is going to help with prioritizing self care and simple strategies to take care of yourself when you're grieving so you don't let your health slide into a serious health issue. So, this is my mission with the Seniors Grief Circle. I'm going to be offering you real talk that soothes the soul. In each episode, I'll be featuring real practical advice, stories, and experiences on these topics and everything in between. If you have a topic in mind, please don't hesitate to reach out to me because it's about time that we started having some real practical conversations around grief and losing a loved one. Real conversations that soothe the soul. And you can message me anytime through social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can also reach me through my website, seniorsgriefcircle.com. My website will be officially launched this fall as a membership platform, offering many resources for anyone at midlife who is grieving. A monthly membership at a very low introductory special rate will give you access to webinars from professionals related to the grief industry. These could be legal experts, financial experts, therapists, and anyone in between. I want to offer meditations and affirmations, short educational videos, things that you can listen to at 3 in the morning when you can't sleep. I'm going to have recommended books, special podcast episodes, and much more. And if you'd like some one on one coaching or some therapy, we can help you with that too. In a few months, once we get going, I hope to offer group coaching sessions as another option to support you or anyone you might know on their grief journey. Grief is very hard to do on your own. It's very hard to walk that journey alone, especially when you're at midlife. So that's it for the first episode of the Seniors Grief Circles podcast. I thank you for tuning in. I know there are a gazillion podcasts out there, but you chose to give this one a listen. And I'm so grateful that you did that. I hope you will walk your grief journey with me and my community. And just a disclaimer that anything shared is not medical or professional advice. It is strictly for informational purposes only. And I know you know that. Have a peaceful day, and we'll see you in episode 2. Thank you so much.